Welcome to Mindful Matters, the podcast where calm conversation meets everyday life. Let's take a breath and begin.
Welcome back to Mindful Matters, being Mindful Matters. I want to be mindful on a subject. I done a piece, I think it was last week, on children being bullied. I want to do a piece on the bully. What makes a bully? You know, I never make excuses for people, but if you try to understand someone and their situation or condition or whatever, you're not gonna you're not gonna be so judgmental. At least I'm not. Everybody's different. Because a child rarely becomes a bully just because. And it's almost always a symptom, not the root. Why a child might become a bully. Unmet emotional needs. Okay, the child who bullies is often the child who feels unseen, unheard, powerless, and disconnected. The child tries to gain on the outside what they're missing on the inside. Bullying becomes a way to feel big when they feel small. And they're trying to make up the difference. Model behavior. Okay, this goes back to, common sense. I hope that people understand this. Children copy what they see. If a child grows up around yelling, intimidation, harsh criticism, dominance, and emotional shutdown, they learn that power equals control and conflict equals aggression. This is classic social learning theory. Children don't do what they say, okay? They do what they model. They do what we model. They end up modeling what we model to them. See, they watch and they see. Trauma or chronic stress. A child living in chaos often develops hypervigilance, quick trigger anger, survival mode thinking. Okay, the brain shifts into fight or flight dominance, especially with the amygdala. That's the part of your brain. Okay, this makes up the child more uh, prone to being reactive, defensive, and aggressive. Bullying becomes a shield, a preemptive strike to avoid being hurt. You're always on guard. That's where the hypervigilance comes in. Low self-worth. Many bullies are deeply insecure. Okay, they attack others to avoid feeling inferior, embarrassed, weak, or even exposed. Psychology calls this projective identification, pushing unwanted feelings onto someone else. If I make you feel small, I don't have to feel small. That's, that's their thinking uh, most times. Lack of emotional regulation skills. Okay, this is where raising children, this is one of the things that as an adult parent or a caregiver need to start early. Okay, some kids simply don't know how to calm themselves, express frustration, handle disappointment, and communicate their needs. Without regulation skills, aggression becomes their default language. This is especially common in children with ADHD, trauma histories, sensory processing issues, and attachment disruptions. Desire for control or predictability. Okay, kids who feel powerless at home or school often seek control anywhere they can find it. Bullying gives them predictability, dominance, and a sense of order. Okay, it's not about cruelty, it's about regaining control in a world that feels unstable. Peer reinforcement. I mentioned this too the other day. You know, if peers laugh, cheer, or stay silent, the behavior is rewarded. Okay, it can be considered conforming, conformity. The brain releases dopamine when a child feels social approval. So the bullying becomes a repeated behavior, not because they're mean, but because the brain is being chemically rewarded. Attachment wounds. Children who lack secure attachment often struggle with empathy, trust, emotional safety, and relational boundaries. Bullying becomes a way to keep emotional distance. If I push you away, you can't hurt me. It's, uh, it's some of their thinking. This is a classic attachment theory in action. The core psychological truth. Okay, a bully is not a child who feels powerful. Okay, a bully is a child who feels powerless and trying to fix it in the only way they know how. Okay, here are here's some reasons why a child might become a bully. Okay, they feel powerless. They lack emotional skills. They're modeling what they've seen. They're coping with stress or trauma. And they're trying to protect themselves. They're seeking belonging or approval. Bullying is a behavior, not an identity. And behavior is always communication. Okay, I got to add on here. Um, a little technical here, according to psychology. Some differences. Development versus pattern. Okay, children and teens bully because they are developing. Adults bully because the behavior is solidified. Okay, I'm going to give some differences between child, adolescent, teens, and adult bullying. Child bullying is immature skills and big feelings. Emotional immaturity, skills deficits, their modeling behavior, and their attention seeking, and insecurity. Okay, child bullying is usually a symptom of unmet needs, stress, or poor modeling, not a fixed personality. Adolescent teen bullying. Okay, it's about identity, status, and social survival. Okay, peer pressure, brain development, identity formation, social hierarchy, emotional intensity. Okay, teen bullying is often about power, belonging, and identity, not just aggression. And adult bullying, okay, this is where the brain is supposed to be mostly developed. And knowing right from wrong is more often uh, how it is. Okay, um, adult bullying is a pattern, not a phase. Okay, it's learned behavior. The personality trait, okay, narcissism, insecurity, or control issues may be involved. Power dynamics, emotional stunting, okay, adults who never develop empathy or regulation continue childish tactics and unresolved trauma. Adult bullying is rarely about development, okay, it's about patterns, power, and unaddressed emotional deficits. Okay, the big difference here. All right, children bully because they're still growing. Adults bully because they stop growing. Kids need skills and connection. All right, teens need guidance, boundaries, and belonging. adults need accountability and sometimes therapy. Okay, and of course, each group requires a different intervention strategy. So pay attention, help yourself, help your child. Just don't get mad at a bully, and get upset and, let's punish them, which, that people need accountability. But if you have understanding of someone and their actions and their ways, then 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to help them out and do what you can to be there for someone. It's not all about just getting mad and upset with someone, because they're a bully. And like I said, they need accountability too, but they also need understanding, okay? Because understanding is a key. Just do the best you can. And have a good day. Stay safe and peaceful.